Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to tonight's stream. This is your vampire Onasama Sister Midnight, here with you this, what are we today? Wednesday or Tuesday? I don't even know. But before anything else, I just want to verify, is the audio okay? How is the audio? Is the audio okay? It's not too loud because I'm looking at the audio on my end. All right. Well, for starters, good evening, everyone. And congratulations, Canolis, for getting first for, let me see, 22 times. I gotta reduce the volume a little bit for the background audio as well, because I think it's a little too loud. I don't know, maybe it's just me. You've almost reached the Hall of Fame. Also, Lobsky, good evening. Have a good night in advance, because I know that it's already way past bedtime for you. So please make sure that you are resting. Okay, apologies for my voice, because I'm still suffering the after effects of a cough. So there's still some lingering cough somewhere. Also, for the 40 bites, already at 40. Pony, good evening, and thank you for the 19 bites. Gecko for the 29 bites. You're in need of more bites, Pony. You are severely lacking in bites. You need to get yourself bitten ASAP. Also, Dorian, good evening. Well, my eyes went full of what exactly? I don't. Is it the outfit? Also, Joms, happy birthday to you as well. And thank you for the, let me see, 31 bites. Perhaps might be too low, in fact. Okay. Shall I increase the volume of the mic, or should I get a little bit closer? Just don't suddenly yell or sneeze. Don't worry, these are very strong bandages. They're industrial strength bandages. They can hold a ton of weight, in fact. Also, hello series, thank you for the 27 bites. It's only 1:21 a.m. Still doing some work. All right. Well, I'm glad that you have Onasama's voice to listen to while you're doing some work. Hello, Dex. 29 bites. Hello, Meta. Some rumors. What kind of rumors did you hear, Meta? About what exactly? Also, thank you for the 28 bites. It's probably the puppies. Yes, of course. The industrial strength bandages are meant to hold a lot of things together. So yes, the lung capacity, of course. Of course, of course. New hardware. Yes, indeed. In fact, that is the purpose of the new hardware, to make sure make sure that everything stays in place. To make sure that everything stays in place. Yes, madam. But yes, I streamed yesterday in the afternoon, testing out the capability of the new hardware, putting it through its paces, so to speak, by streaming with it. But for those who are not aware, there are now two different computers, two PCs in fact. Thank you for the follow, the Fallout Boy. Welcome to the channel. Welcome in, welcome in. How much did you pay for the RAM? Well, I won't say it's one of the puppies, Bodhi, but probably a little bit of liver. Something like that. Thankfully, it's not that big of a chunk of the organ that was donated. Just enough. But yes, we do have two different computers now. One will be for the games. So I have a gaming PC where the games are installed so that I can no longer blame bad hardware for dying in a game. There is now a dedicated streaming PC where basically all the streaming load, yes, that's the right term to use, the streaming load is placed. I really hope my RAM won't die for a few more years. Well, if you take care of it and not subject it to, don't abuse your RAM, perhaps. I'll say if you get a good quality RAM, then it should last you, perhaps even, I don't know, a decade. If you have a quality RAM, that is. If not, you may have to sell part of your internal organs to get yourself some RAM, though I hope that does not actually happen. Because I know that with the ramping up of AI, RAM prices have skyrocketed, and with that, the GPUs have also followed suit. And after the GPUs, we also have our storage. They're also starting to rise in prices. So I am also hoping that the new setup will last me for at least, 5 years. Just until a certain bubble pops. If it ever does pop, But yes, your setup will definitely last you 5 to 6 more years. I am very glad to hear that. Now let's just hope that my stolen power source my stolen power source will not fail me. My brother doesn't know yet that I stole his power supply unit. He's not here anyways. He's out somewhere doing they call it rides. I don't really understand how it works, but they basically ride their motorcycles around the country, and they have like stopovers, and you get checkpoints. So you go to a certain place, you present yourself there, and the ones in charge will verify that that is you, and verify that you have reached said checkpoint. I'm just feeding our puppy right now. I have been teaching her Scandinavian. Why Scandinavian, Gecko? What is the reason why Scandinavian and not your native language? Or is it your native language? My PC was built by Ironside Computers. Is that a brand of pre-built computers? Ironside? Or is that supposed to mean something else? I know that pre-built PCs nowadays have become more of a go-to choice actually for those who are just starting out with PC gaming, mostly because you're able to save compared to when you're going to set up or make your or pick the parts of your own PC by yourself. Hello, Tatsuya. Good evening, welcome in. It's your heritage, I see. What kind of puppy do you have again? I forgot. Or I don't know if I asked you even as to what type of puppy you have. Also, for those who are in the US or in the Western Hemisphere, is it still snowing, by the way? A Maltese, I see. That's a tiny dog, right? I think. I'm not really sure. How is the snow and the cold? Here in my country, people have been using AI to generate photos of well-known landmarks in our areas but covered in snow. And in my head I'm thinking, yes, you may think it's wonderful, all that white, fluffy snow, but in reality, snow is extremely... Let's just say that me and the snow are not exactly friends. Hello, Damon. Good evening, and thank you for the 5 bites. Pre-built computers, but they have a different design, like from big VTuber hits. Ah, I see. I do remember when I was trying to look for parts for the PC. I was looking for a the case, and I saw 2 cases from Height Computers, I believe, for 2 VTubers, Hololive VTubers. That's Heiko's Bells and Urocrony, and they cost 15,000 pesos. So you're gonna have to convert that to your local currency, but that is how much it costs for just the case itself. It didn't snow where I am here, but there's more coming that way again. I am just glad that you guys are not snowed in, but if ever you guys are, please make sure that you do prepare. Snow is nice to look at, not so much to live in. Exactly. I agree completely. Hello, Luchan. Welcome in, welcome in. I think you have forgotten that you still have a blurb walk on. But don't worry, it is muted. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but I did mute it because this is an ASMR stream. I'm in the desert. Ah, I see. So not much snow to worry about then. They have a TikTok channel where you can make your own PC. Ah, I see. I think one of the advantages of having pre-built computers is the fact that they can order parts in bulk. And when you order parts in bulk, it allows for lower prices for the various PC peripherals and PC parts. Also, I might get called. The stream might get interrupted once in a while because there are a lot of people in the house. We have plenty of people in the house today, and I might get called, so I might have to temporarily halt if we started reading. Okay? No, we get snow in our high country here, just not where I am. I see. But I know that there are certain parts of the US where there is no snow. Yes? Hello, Chan. Good evening, welcome in. Also, I think since we're talking about snow, I think this would be a good time to announce, I guess, that Mafia Family and I might be, the operative word being might be, we might be visiting Canada by the end of the year. We are going to be visiting my nephews there. That is the plan. We don't know yet if the plan will push through because we still have to apply for visas and such. So we don't know if it will be approved or not. But since Mafia Queen will only be available November onwards, so we can only go there November onwards, and I know for a fact that that is already cold and starting to go into winter. So I am worried about that part. They send you the case empty with your parts in the case in their boxes. Oh, so you're the one who has to put the parts together. So just the parts and you have to do the assembly. I see. There's a lot of snow there indeed. I think Canada, a part of Canada, I believe, is considered one of the coldest in North America. Right now, I'm not really sure if that is true or if I read that correctly or if I remember that correctly. But I do know that November and onwards is going to be cold. Oh, Alaska, I see. It's going to be cold, and your Anesima is very what is the term to use? Let's just say I really do not like the cold. It's optional, so you don't have to pay more. Ah, I see. So it's so that you don't have to pay the service fee for the assembly. I think that is a good option if you know how to put your PC parts together. I think that is one good way to to save on the cost of the PC. So yeah, I like that option. You know, if you're experienced enough with tech that you're able to put your own PC together, then I think that's one way that you can save. Because again, parts for putting your own PC together is becoming very, very expensive. I studied computer engineering, I see. That is very good. Very good. All right. So, I think I have been yapping for more computer repair. I see there are a lot of people in chat. You guys are very well versed with PCs and computers. Well, I mean, you are in. I'm going to assume that you guys are in. Prefer PC over consoles. I may need more RAM if you have some spare. There's some RAM available, Meta, but it is laptop RAM. It's a laptop RAM, however, not a PC RAM. Let's study for the A+ certification. Ah, I see. Hello, Tony. Good evening, good evening. Welcome in, welcome in. We were just talking about two things, the cold and PC parts. So yeah, also Meta, the old RAM that I had is now in the old PC, or I guess you can say the streaming PC. The previous RAM that I had is now installed in the streaming PC. So the only RAM that is available here is 2 sticks of laptop RAM, I believe, that I found in my brother's office. So it's just sitting there because he moved out recently and he did not clean his office. So we were the ones, your sticks of ham. Hello, Sasya. Don't forget your bite. You might forget to be bitten again. So yes. See, you still only have 6 bites. You need lots of bites. And welcome in, Fallout Boy, for your first bite. The bite is a little bit stronger than the succeeding ones, since I take just a tiny little bit more for your first bite. But don't worry, that will only be for the first time. So yes, that is the only RAM that I can spare. I may have to return it to my brother though, and tell him that I have his RAM sticks. Is there a thing as a watch time? I didn't know that. 3 years. That has been quite a while. Torian, I will expect you on the next Arc Raider stream, yes? 2 years. Plenty of veterans in chat. You too, Meta. You too. Have you guys tried the solo versus squad situation? I was... Oh. Look at that. 4 years. It even includes the seconds. That's crazy. So yes, I shall message Dorian and Meta. If you want to go into sweaty lobbies, sweaty PvP lobbies, because I'm pretty sure. Yes, Jen. You can see. Look at that. Jan trumped everyone else. Okay, so yes, I believe Chen was here. With anyone, you can see how long. That is true. That's because Chen, I believe, was you followed during the time when I was still a. 1 second, I'm being called. Okay, I'm back. So yeah, there you go. Like I said, I might get interrupted once in a while because again, there are plenty of people here. Early Tenno days, yes, my baby Tenno days. Well, I mean, even now, I'm still a baby Tenno. I was here since like the FB days. Oh, so you followed during my flesh tuber days. I can't believe you're there during my flesh tuber days. Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Okay, so I have been live for however long already, so I think it's time we head into our stories to help those who are either wanting to get some sleep or maybe not sleep. I don't know. It's up to you. Hello, Mr. Big Boss. Good evening, good evening. Welcome in. Okay, so I have already taken the liberty of picking the stories that we are going to be reading. These are actually older stories, not recent ones, but I picked them because of how how they evoke feelings in the reader. But before that, let me preface the first story, okay? Because the first story is going to involve some illness that people might not be comfortable with. So I have to put a disclaimer. to make sure that this is something that you're okay with, and if not, then you can always just mute the stream or you can click out, okay? So the first the first stream, no, not the first stream. What am I saying? The first story. But first, I forgot. You need to actually switch. Okay. Okay, so our first story is entitled Hunger. So, from that title alone, I believe you guys can already surmise that there might be some issues that are included in the story itself. So, if eating disorders and their related illnesses are something that you are uncomfortable with, I would like to request that you either mute the stream or you click out, okay? Although this one is not really something that is, how to say, it's a very short story and it does not delve deep into it. It only describes some aspect of it, but still, there might be some people who may find it uncomfortable. So, again, before we start, please make sure I'm just giving everyone a heads up. Alright? So let's start. The title of our first story for this evening is called, or is entitled, Hunger. As a doctor, I am bound by doctor-patient privilege to not disclose the specifics of what I'm about to tell you. But as a human being, I feel compelled to share. This is, without a doubt, the most horrific story I've ever had the displeasure of being a part of. It was 2009, and my schedule that day was light. I was just finishing up my lunch when I got a call from a friend and colleague who had his own practice in the same building as me. Sometimes we would send work each other's way when we knew the other could use it. I was a bit elated at the prospect of him calling me because I had just been going over my books and stressing a bit. "Are you busy right now? I'd like to send someone up to you," he said. "No, my afternoon is barren. What are the details?" "It's a walk-in. From the look of it, an eating disorder. Her mother is concerned." Eating disorder. Those can be unpleasant. I'd actually had a bulimic throw up in my office once when I stepped out momentarily to check my calendar. Still, I needed the work. "All right, send her up." I tried to tidy up my desk to make my office look more presentable and professional while I waited. 10 minutes ticked by and no patient showed up, so I stepped out to go looking for her. When I got to the hall, there was a small contingent of people standing around the elevator. They were talking amongst themselves. "What's going on?" I asked. The elevator's broke, someone said. Shit, I bet she's on there, I thought. What floor is it stuck on? The 10th and 11th. Yeah, that would be about right. My colleague's office was on the 10th, 3 floors down. I knew from experience that it could be anywhere up to an hour before they got the elevator working again. I hoped she wasn't claustrophobic. Returning to my office, I called downstairs. What's up? My colleague asked after picking up. She's stuck in the elevator. He laughed. Really? Poor thing. What's her name? Amelia. He paused. Amelia D. something. Alright, thanks. If you got any impressions on her from your brief visit, maybe you can share them later over drinks. Sure, Don't tell me. I want to form my own opinion first. Okay. True to form, an hour and 10 minutes later, I heard a loud cheer from the hallway, indicating the elevator had started working again. I should go make sure she's all right, I thought to myself, and went out to join the throng of people standing around in the hallway. There were a lot more people by then, and I couldn't make my way to the elevator doors or even see them from where I was, but I could hear it when the elevator dinged, indicating it was stopping on our floor, and the rolling mechanical sound of the doors opening. There was a loud gasp from the crowd of people, followed by a lot of jabbering. Holy shit, someone said quite loudly. People started hustling away from the elevator, shoving past me. I struggled against the tide and made my way to where a number of people were standing around, staring into the elevator cab. As I approached, I could smell this stench. It was like stumbling into the apartment of a recluse who hadn't come out or bathed for years. It rolled like a wave out of the elevator and cascaded over everyone in the hallway. A young man in a business suit who looked dressed for an interview was covering his mouth and nose with a handkerchief. I skirted around him to see into the elevator. One second. Alright, I'm back. Let us continue. The woman in the elevator was not at all what I was expecting. Massively obese, she looked like she weighed somewhere around 500 to 600 pounds. Her face was so puffed up, her eyes were barely visible. Just two dark dots above her cheeks. She had frizzed out brown hair that still had curlers in it. The notion that I was smelling a recluse seemed all the more plausible at the sight of her. Her mouth was covered with what looked like greasy barbecue sauce. There was even some sort of gristle at the corners of her lips. There was more of it all over her hands and wiped down the front of her shirt. It looked like she had come straight from an all-you-can-eat rib buffet. Clenched tightly in one of her hands was a big black trash bag that sagged full of something that seemed to slosh around inside it. The smell coming out of it was nauseating. The woman stepped out of the elevator, her eyes and nose runny with tears and mucus. I stepped forward while everyone else backed away, horrified. "Amelia?" I asked her. She looked at me through her beady little piggy eyes, her cheeks covered with that vile red gunk and streaking with tears, and opened her mouth. For about 3 seconds, I had the horrible notion that she was going to vomit an entire barbecue on me. I was hungry, she stuttered with a thick southern accent. The young man in the suit heaved involuntarily at the smell of her breath and then strode away, trying to maintain his demeanor. "That's okay," I said, reaching out to help her. "Do you want to talk about it in my office?" Seeing me reach out to her, she clenched her black trash bag tightly and hugged it to her chest. The contents of it made a sickening squish sound. I could taste my own lunch in the back of my throat. "Is that yours?" I asked. "I'm not going to take it." She started sobbing, this horrible, almost hob-like squeal of a sob. Honestly, I didn't want to touch her. I wanted to go back into my office, lock the door, and pretend I was glad my afternoon was completely empty. The smell wafting off of her and of that big bag of spoils was going to be permeating every crevice of my office for days. I just knew it. Still, this was a human being that had come seeking my help, and I was not about to turn her away. "My office is right down the hall. Why don't you come with me?" I started walking. In my head, I said, "If she doesn't come with me, fuck it. She can go back to her apartment. That's probably filled with roaches and feces and who knows what other ungodly things, and I'll find someone else to help." But she followed me, lumbering on legs that stretched to the limits of the sweatpants she had on. I held the door open for her, and she waddled in, kneading the contents of that trash bag in her thick sausage fingers, making it belch and splurge. She stopped and just stood there in the middle of my office. "The elevator got stuck," she mumbled. "Yes, I'm sorry about that. I hope you're all right. Thank goodness you brought something to eat, yes?" She started crying again, squeezing her trash bag, and I was afraid it was going to explode and leave God knows what all over my office floor. She nodded as her face turned red and tears poured out of seemingly every pore of her head. I went and got her a box of tissues and handed her a couple. She tried to take them while still holding on to the bag with both hands. "Would you like me to hold that?" I offered, praying she'd say no. She shook her head. "What do you have in there?" I finally decided to ask. She huffed and snorted, trying to inhale all the fluid back into her face. Using one of the tissues, she mopped her eyes and mouth, getting blotchy red smears all over the place. "Leftovers," she stuttered. Then her chest started heaving, and she threw her head back and started bawling again. Her face was like a fountain. She was so utterly miserable, and I really started to feel bad for her. "Look," I said, "getting stuck in that elevator was obviously pretty traumatic." Her wailing hit a crescendo. "So why don't we postpone things until you've calmed down a bit?" She struggled through her sobbing. You want to meet with me?" "Well, yes, but not today. Why don't you go home and try to relax? I don't think you're in the right frame of mind right now to talk, but I want to help you. So let's schedule an appointment for later this week. How does that sound?" I walked back to my desk and got out one of my cards. Her mouth was quivering, and she looked ready to collapse into a pile of screaming phlegm. But she was calming down a bit, just nodding more than anything, and she took my card with the same sticky fingers, holding several drippy tissues. "Thank you," she said quietly. I couldn't read her face at all. Her features were so red and swollen and wet that she seemed almost blank and expressionless. "Do you want me to escort you down to the lobby?" I asked, "in case something happens with the elevator again?" "It should be all right, but I don't want you to be nervous." She shook her head. "That don't seem like a good idea." "Okay." And with that, she turned around and waddled out of my office, slowly, sobbing slightly every now and then. With her went that sloshy black trash bag. and with them both went that putrid aroma of filth and squalor. I literally breathed a sigh of relief as I heard the door click shut. She never called me back. It was a week later that I finally got around to having drinks with my colleague from downstairs. We were relaxing, having a couple of beers, and I suddenly remembered her. "Oh, thanks, by the way," I said. "For what?" "For Amelia." "Who?" "Amelia. Eating disorder. Last week, you sent her up to me, remember?" "Oh, right." He sipped his beer. "The one who got stuck in the elevator. How did that go?" "She was a wreck," I said, sobbing and practically hysterical. "I talked her into rescheduling, but she hasn't called me to make an appointment." "Did you talk to her mother?" "No, I didn't get any information from her. I gave her my card." "What did you think?" he asked. "Classic food dependency," I said. "Definitely a binge eater." Her face was just all, "No, not the mother. I mean Amelia." "What?" "What did you think of Amelia?" he said again. "I'm telling you what I thought. Amelia, the scrawny 12-year-old girl you think is a binge eater?" "What? No, that's not..." And then it hit me. Was her mother with her? "Yeah, I sent them both up to you." "They were in the elevator together?" He looked at me, and the same dawning realization came over his face. Needless to say, she never rescheduled Amelia D. something. Nor did her mother, the nameless, obese woman I met that day at the elevator, smelling like death, covered in gore, and carrying her trash bag of sloshing leftovers. And that is our first story for this evening. Before we proceed, Met Yose, thank you so much for the follow and welcome in. So that particular story was, or rather the ending, really took me by surprise. Hello, Sir Zot. Welcome in and thank you for the 27 bytes. So do you think, I know the reason why Amelia, the little girl, was or had an eating disorder. What are you guys' thoughts? And where do you think Amelia is? Where do you think the little girl is? I believe so, yes, Gecko. And I think we also know the reason why she has an eating disorder and refuses to eat. It's because of the woman with her. Hello, Fangbite. Good evening, good evening. Welcome in. But that is a very extreme case of eating disorder that would reach that point, not for the little girl, but for her mother. So in a way, yes, it is a horror story, one that is bound to make you think and imagine what it would be like to be in that kind of situation. Also, it's a good thing that our next ad, I believe there is now an ad going on, so it is a good time for everyone to take a little bit of a break while I prepare the next story. Our next story, by the way, is very appropriate considering that a lot of places, because I believe a lot of viewers, a lot of you guys in chat are in the West, and it is still pretty much winter time and snowed in a lot of places. So our next story will involve a blizzard. So the next story that we have, by the way, is the audio still okay? Can you guys still hear me? How about the background audio? Is it overpowering my voice? Or is it too... Audio is Gucci. Okay, so the background audio is not overpowering my voice, but you can still hear it, yes? It's not overpowering. Or are you able to hear it or no? You're not able to hear it, okay. Let me increase the volume a little bit for the background audio. How about that? Can you guys hear it now? Thankfully, the ad break is also finishing, so can you hear the background audio that I have now? Before we continue to our next story. I'm gonna need you guys to verify whether or not you guys can hear the sound of the audio. How about this one? Which I forgot, by the way. Because I forgot we were in a library with a fireplace on, because you know, it is snowing outside. Welcome in. I shall just call you Flaccid. And that is all I'm going to read. But thank you so much for the follow. Shall we begin our next story? This particular story happens during a blizzard of a person seeking shelter from the blizzard. There's an unspoken rule up in the mountains that no matter who you are, friend, bitter rival, stranger, anyone, if you're ever in a pinch and come across another hunter's cabin, you're welcome to seek shelter there. Maybe it's unspoken because it's common courtesy, and that whole do unto others thing. Or maybe it's unspoken because there's hardly anyone to speak to. In the winter months, especially, you'd be hard-pressed to see another soul for weeks, sometimes months. But that's the rule. You need it, you use it. No judgment, no questions asked. Just don't steal anything. 1 second. I'll be right back. I'm back. My apologies for the interruptions. Interruptions, plural. Now, I'm not a burly, seasoned mountain man that flosses with tree bark and never shaves, but I do like to hunt. I often leave my small Alaskan village for weeks at a time and take to my hunting lodge up in the mountains. I'm a fairly cautious guy, and I know the mountains can be traitorous. So when I leave prepared. I check the long-term forecast, gather the necessary supplies, bring backups, and make sure I've got enough of everything I need to survive at least a week longer than I plan on staying, just in case. I always believed my precautions would protect me, but like a child's security blanket, they are only a paper-thin illusion of safety. There's no planning when Mother Nature decides she's in a mood. That's why I never expected to get caught in a blizzard that day. It had started out sunny and cold, but as the day progressed, a few clouds formed. By the time they'd amassed into a heavy cloud covering, I was already on my way back to my cabin, with a couple hairs hanging over my shoulders. I'd named them dinner and breakfast. Who names their rabbits their kill? I was planning on eating breakfast for dinner and dinner for breakfast, if only to make myself laugh. It's the little things like that that keeps the solitude from turning into loneliness. The snowfall seemed to come out of nowhere, like someone had knocked an awning shut, and all the snow collected on top had fallen all at once. Except it wasn't a single tidal wave of snow. It was a relentless, unending assault. Last I checked, the weather reports hadn't mentioned a blizzard. And yet, a blizzard was what I found myself walking through. It got very dark, very fast, and I kicked myself for leaving my flashlight back at my lodge. I had planned on coming home long before nightfall, so I hadn't thought I needed it. I'd been sorely mistaken. Snow prickled painfully as it darted into my eyes. I had squinted almost all the way. My apologies for that very rude interruption, the very rude sound. Where were we? Yes, Alaska, they leave their cabins open because bears can just attack if you aren't careful. That's very scary to contemplate, actually. Snow prickled painfully as it darted into my eyes. I had to squint almost all the way to keep those sub-zero jerks from stabbing me blind. The wind howled as gales cut through my clothes and right to my bones. I can barely see 2 feet in front of me, and I couldn't see the 2 feet beneath me as they sank in an ever-growing blanket of white. I'm not sure when I realized I was lost. At some point, I knew I should have arrived at my cabin, but all I saw was a white, with a few slivers of gray swaying in the thick breeze. The hairs at the back of my neck became stiff and battered against me with every puff of air and every awkward, crashing footfall. I was running out of energy, running out of ideas, and beginning to panic. I could have spun around in a computer chair 100 times and felt less disoriented than I did in that whiteout. And then I walked right into a cabin, literally. It had become so dark, and the snow had become so heavy that I couldn't see the structure until I stumbled face first into it. I held my hands against the wooden facade so I wouldn't lose it in the storm, and circled around until I found a door. I wasn't just in a pinch. This was life or death. In the unlikely event someone was inside, I knocked on the door and waited for an answer. Through the howling wind, I could have sworn I heard, "Come in." As I swung open the door and stepped inside, a small avalanche of snow tumbled in with me. I didn't bother trying to kick it out as I fought against the wind to close the door behind me. The relief was instantaneous. Without the air whipping at me, I'd put a stop to the timer ticking down to my freezing death. "Thanks," I whispered. I turned towards the inside of the cabin and tried to get my bearings. But all I saw was blackness, which meant I had no real way of gauging the size of the cabin. Yeah, I'd circled around it, but I'd been stumbling around half blind, focused and trying to find a doorknob. So I had no idea what length of the cabin I'd covered. I could have walked half of it. I could have circled around 3 times without realizing it. Through the darkness, all I could see was the vague outline of someone sitting in the corner. "You're a real lifesaver," I said. He didn't answer. I pawed around for a lighter, a lantern, matchbook, anything that might emit light. But all my fingertips touched were chains and the barrels of hunting rifles. I stopped poking around when I felt an open bear trap. Wouldn't want to get my arm caught in one of those. It was safer to sit still and wait for daybreak. It occurred to me the stranger might have been seeking refuge as well. So, I started, keeping my tone light and innocent. "You the owner of this cabin?" The answer was more of a hiss than a word. But in that hiss, I heard a faint yes. I sat on the floor, let my hairs down beside me, and reached into my pack. Why I'd taken a sleeping bag with me and not a flashlight was beyond me. I removed my wet clothes and quietly slipped into the sleeping bag to warm up, making conversation as I did. "Thanks again. That blizzard really came out of nowhere." He replied with the slow, labored, wheezy breaths of an elderly man on his deathbed. "Dangerous." "Yeah," I chuckled. "That's an understatement." "Hungry," he exhaled. "You get a fireplace? I've got a couple of hares. I'll cook them up. It's the least I can do," I offered. His reply was drawn out, like a wolf howling, but without the majestic hum. No. Okay. As soon as the blizzard dies down, I'll go gather wood and make us a fire. Can you wait until then? I saw his silhouette shift slightly. There was a rattle of chains. No, again, the O stretched out in a long, bloated groan. No. No, yes. The final no morphed strangely into a yes, like someone drastically changing to a much higher note and a flute halfway through a breath. I craned my neck to look at the single window in the cabin. It was pitch black, pitch white. It was like an afterglow, visible against the black backdrop of the wood, yet still inherently dark. I focused on it rather than the rest of the cabin, because it was the only hint of light I could see. If you don't mind, I'm going to try and catch some shut-eye, I said tiredly. He didn't respond, but that didn't surprise me. Mountain folk don't talk much, even when they come down to town for what few supplies they can't make themselves. I shrugged it off and settled in for the night, but I felt something hard against my side. Sighing, I tossed my hairs back a bit further and got comfortable. I was exhausted, so it wasn't all that hard for me to drift off, despite the wind's song playing outside the walls. I hugged myself in my sleeping bag and drifted off. I was awoken by a different sound, a weird, snapping crunch that made me shoot up in bed, believing the ceiling was about to collapse under the weight of the snow. I braced myself, but as the sound came again, I realized it wasn't above me, but rather next to me, near my belongings. The silhouette was gone from the corner, and I could hear his deep, raspy breaths accompanying the crunch. "What the hell are you doing?" I snapped. He retreated back to his corner with a rattling of chains. My adrenaline was pumping, and I wasn't even sure why. Something about the stranger put me in a state of near panic. My instincts were telling me to leave, but I couldn't afford it. Whatever this guy was up to, I was safer with him than I was out there in the blizzard. I grabbed my backpack and propped myself against the wall in a seated position, staring at the silhouette, expecting him to make a move. I kept myself awake and alert, never looking away even as the howling wind slowly diminished in strength. Once or twice, I felt my head begin to dip and my eyes begin to shut. But every time I slipped, the faint rattle of chains snapped me back into consciousness. As the blizzard cleared and the sun slowly rose, light began to trickle into the cabin. The scene filtered through in tiny increments, with each layer uncovered by the sun, like a printer slowly spitting out the full picture, one line at a time. I wasn't in a cabin. It was a large supply shed that was maybe 10 to 11 feet long, 7 to 8 feet wide. There was no fireplace, which makes sense for a supply shed. There were tools, traps, and rifles lining every wall. The silhouette in the corner slowly stopped being a silhouette and started being a distinct person. Hello, Nex. Good evening, and thank you for 31 bites. Skinny. No. Gaunt. Pale. No. Ghost white. Man. No. Corpse. Corpse. I was gutted. He was dead. Not, oh shoot, I died overnight, or about that dead. Long dead. Long, long, long dead. His body was all shriveled and mummified? Is that even the right word for it? He wasn't wrapped in a bandage or anything like that, but his skin was completely dehydrated and stiff, like an unwrapped mummy. His hair was hanging from his head in unkempt strings. His teeth were poking out of his shrunken lips, with a wide gap where the top right canine should have been. There was a stain of age-old blood soaked into the wood beneath him. I followed it my gaze to its origin. His left foot and the bear trap in which it had gotten caught. There was an empty hook in the wall above him, with a chain leading to the trap. It was long enough for him to move around, but not enough for him to reach the front door, or the saw hanging above it. My best guess was the trap had fallen in its own while he was out, and at some point he'd done a supply run in the dark and had gotten caught in his own trap. He'd probably died of thirst or something. Look, I'm telling you, he wasn't breathing. He wasn't moving. He was dead as a doornail, and had been for quite some time. I sat there, reasoning I'd been delirious the night before. The fatigue, the dehydration, the disorientation caused by the blizzard, it made me imagine his voice. Those slow, hissing sounds I thought were replies were just the wind outside. I'd interpreted them wrong because the loneliness had finally gotten to me. The elements had conspired against me to create a living person out of someone who definitely wasn't living. It was a good, logical explanation, and I wish I could say it was true. Except I'm not the one who bit the head off of breakfast. It's not my canine tooth I found on the floor next to me. My dry, dirty, wood-like fingernails aren't the ones sticking out of the outside of my sleeping bag. I'm not the one who caked the corpse's dry, cracking lips with white fur. I didn't stick around for dinner. And that is our second story for this evening. One of the biggest fears that I have is that of a dead body coming alive. Even when I'm sure the regulars in chat know about this. During the time when the mortuary assistant became very it became a very popular game to play, I couldn't push through with playing it, because of the idea of of a dead body. The fear of having a dead body move was something that I just could not. I just could not. Although in this case, he didn't know that whatever was moving in the dark was already dead, and only found out later on. But the idea of a dead body moving on its own, even knowing that it's already dead, is one of the greatest fears that I have. Perhaps even a lot of people actually have that kind of fear, and it's pretty understandable. So for those who are fond of going out, whether it be the mountains or other places where you can get stranded during a heavy snow or a blizzard, I only have one word to give you, or I guess one thing to say. Bring your flashlight. Alright, make sure to bring your flashlight. I will be right back. I just need to refresh myself a little bit. Alright, I'm back. We'll proceed with the next story. This story was actually published 8 years ago, to be exact. With our previous story, our storyteller stumbled into a cabin. In our next story, our storyteller is attempting to leave a place. His bathroom, to be exact. So the title of the post is I've been trying to leave my bathroom for the past 30 minutes. I'm very curious. I was very curious when I saw this story, and I wanted to find out how the story goes. So let us proceed. But before that, for those who might be in their bathrooms while they are listening to this story, I would highly suggest that you leave your bathrooms first before you continue listening. Yes? Hello, I don't know how to pronounce your name, Fansty. Welcome in, and thank you so much for the follow. And Noah, welcome in as well. Alright, let's begin. Let's hope you guys are not in your bathroom. I can't leave my bathroom. About 30 minutes ago, I got out of the shower and dried off, put on my PJs, opened the door, and walked out, only to find myself back in my bathroom, staring at the closed door. I stopped and tried to rationalize what had just happened to me. I convinced myself that I had simply imagined that I had opened the door and stepped out. So I tried again. I pushed the door handle down, opened it, stepped out, and yet again found myself in my bathroom, standing in front of a closed door. This has happened every time I've tried to leave. I keep my phone in the bathroom with me when I'm showering. I live alone, so I keep it with me just in case, for safety. The first thing I did was call my parents. My dad didn't pick up, but my mom did. I tried to explain the situation to her, but she couldn't seem to understand how I was trapped in my bathroom if the door could open. She seemed convinced that I must mean that my bathroom's door lock was broken and I was trapped inside. Regardless, she said that she would be over ASAP. She only lives a 15-minute drive away, so she should be here any moment. I sat leaning against my bathtub, looking out the open bathroom door into my landing. I opened it this time, but didn't try to step out. Everything looks normal. My bedroom door is closed, just as I left it. The airing cupboard door closed as well. The stairs leading down to the hallway and the front door. All normal. The door is shut. I don't have any recollection of how it shut. When it shut, only that it must have happened in the last few seconds after I wrote that last paragraph. I've just reread and reread the paragraph. It's proof that I'm not going crazy and imagining this. My mom just texted me to see if I'm in the house. I said yes, of course I am. I'm trapped in the bathroom. That's the whole reason that I called you here. This is what she has sent. Why aren't you saying anything? What do you mean? Are you even in there? Yes, I'm in here. Are you here? I'm outside the bathroom door. I've been calling your name. I don't understand. I can't hear anything through the door. I'm going to open it. I can see my landing, my stairs, my front door, but no Mom. I tried to walk out, but it was fruitless. Back staring at the closed bathroom door. My mom tried to handle the door from her side, but it won't open. She brought tools to unscrew the lock. She says she's doing it now, but I can't hear anything. And I can't see the handle moving. Okay, Mom texted me to say the lock is taken out, but the door still won't open on her side. She looked through the circular hole in the door where the lock was, but just saw my bathroom empty. There's no hole on my side of the door. The handle and lock are intact. I have no idea what's happening or how I can get out. After much convincing my mom that I am in fact in here, she said she's calling someone to possibly knock the door down. I'm worried that once they do that, they will find an empty bathroom, and yet I will still be here, trapped in my bathroom. There's no plug sockets in here. Never mind my phone charger. My phone will die at some point. I'm already on 24%. When it runs out, I might lose my only point of contact with the rest of the world. I don't know what to do. Mom's left now to get help. I'm sitting here wondering what I can do. I tried to break down the door myself. I knew it wouldn't work, but I had to try. I remember reading once on Reddit that you shouldn't use your shoulder. You should try to kick the door by the lock because it's the weak point. It didn't work. I'm not sure any part of this door has a weak point now. The window is small, and I'm not sure if I'd actually be able to fit out of it. Scratch that. The windows won't open either. There are locks in the windows in my house. You can lock them with a little key, but I never received any when I moved in, so I've never been able to lock them. It's locked now, though. It's got one of those wide plastic cheap blinds covering it. I ended up ripping it down. It's pulled some plaster down with it. Now I can get at the window better. It's straight above the toilet, so I am kneeling on top of the toilet lid, yanking at the window handle. It won't. Wait. It opened. I didn't notice how dark it was outside. It shouldn't be dark. It's midday. I looked around, desperately trying to see anyone. No one's around. everything looks kind of muted. I can't describe it, nor can I describe the deep-seated feeling of dread and wrongness as I look out into my neighborhood. My instincts are telling me not to, and I stick my head out to look down to where I could possibly drop to. My window's closed. I never felt myself move, but my window's closed. Even the fucking plastic blind is back in place. I'm sitting on the floor now, as far away from the window and door as I can get. I feel sick. Mom came back along with her work friend. He helped her unscrew the hinges and remove the door. I'm not in there. They can't see me. My mom sent a photo of her inside the bathroom with no me. She thinks this has all been a joke and is refusing to reply to my texts or answer my calls. I'm on 14% battery. I don't know if I will ever get to leave. This might be my only chance to say goodbye to my mom, but she won't answer her phone. I've ripped down the shower curtain, and yet I'm staring at it right now, hung up, hanging over the side of my bath. I looked out the window again. I think I heard a rumbling, low, quiet rumbling. I haven't opened the window since. My phone is on 1%. If I get out, I will update this post. If no edit comes, assume I'm still here. And that is our third story for the evening. I hope you guys are not trapped in your own bathrooms with a phone that is slowly dying. Just be careful when you go into your bathrooms. Though I know that a lot of us, I think it's even something that a lot of people actually do. Even I am guilty of it, of bringing their phones into the bathroom. I often do that as well, actually. Whether it's taking a shower or using the toilet, I often have my phone with me. I don't know if you guys practice that, or if you prefer leaving your phone inside the bedroom rather than bringing it with you to the toilet. But I feel like more often than not, it has become a practice. It's almost like an unconscious practice that we do. That we become so glued to our phones that we bring it with us everywhere. So I hope that if you ever are in a bathroom right now, that your phone is still has enough battery left for you to be able to call in whoever you need to call, just in case you get trapped in the bathroom. Alright, let's close out of this particular story and let me see. Okay. This one, when I checked my, it is a known fact rather that most of the people who are on Twitch, maybe half, I don't know, but most of the people who are on Twitch are male, okay? It's not something that is meant as an insult. It is merely a statement of a fact that majority of you guys in chat are male. I believe there are some females here and there, but most of the time it's usually males, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. I need confirmation. Are you male or are you something else entirely? By the way, thank you Fansty for the bite. This is your first time to be bitten, yes? Your Nesima will take just a tiny little bit more than the usual, since this is your first bite. I'm waiting for answers. Are there males in chat or females? I'm going to assume that you guys are males, mostly. Or has everyone fallen asleep already? Listening to the stories. Is that why nobody's answering? I'm going to assume then that... Hello, Lily? Lily? Is that it? Is that how it's pronounced? I don't know if it is. But thank you so much for the follow and welcome in. Our next story is something that involves the other half of the species. So if you guys are mostly males or guys, like guys as in male, our story involves guys who apparently are not allowed to talk to women. So this story, when I came across it, I was very curious. Why, for what reason, what was the reason why the storyteller was not allowed to talk to women? So let's all find out. Let's all find out together, because I did not read the story. I merely glanced through it a little bit because I wanted to read the story and discover the plot of the story together with you guys. We weren't allowed to talk to women. I was born into one of those old families of the South, the kind that has long since toppled and decayed, attempting desperately to hold itself together. It had money once, as evidenced by the grand old buildings that sat on our property. But the old barns and guest houses sat empty and abandoned, choked with cobwebs and weeds and Spanish moss. The forest had begun to reclaim the property. My family was like many others of its kind, a long, winding lineage marked with rape and slavery and pain. But one thing set us apart. There were no women in my family. What? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm okay. I had no mother, no sisters or grandmothers. Every member of my family was male. My 5 brothers and I never thought it strange, though. We were uneducated and mostly separated from the outside world. Our days were spent laboring on the decaying property. All of our efforts inevitably useless. I'm getting scared. When we weren't plucking weeds or clearing out the decades of trash from the various buildings we played, the quasi-wilderness of our home was a perfect stage for our games. My father was a kind man, but strict. Our self-contained life came with a strange set of rules. There was a chapel on the property, a small white thing half hidden in the woods. It was in better condition than anything else, due to my father's doting care. We were not allowed inside the chapel without him, however. A padlock on the door prevented us from sneaking in. We were on occasion allowed to go to town. It was a half-hour walk through the woods to get there, and excursions were highly anticipated. There were conditions, though. We had to stick together, and we weren't allowed to talk to women. We could talk to men and other boys, but my father strictly forbade us from talking to women, girls, even old maids. He instructed us to say hello and good day and yes ma'am and thank you ma'am like good little southern boys. But other than that, not a word. Hello, Surik. Welcome in, and thank you so much for the follow. This was weird, of course, but everyone in town seemed to abide by these rules as well. The women would give us curt nods and avoid us otherwise. It was so ingrained into our daily lives that none of us ever questioned it. It wasn't going to work forever, of course. My oldest brother, Jamie, started making eyes at the pretty girl who worked at the drugstore ice cream counter. She made eyes back. Soon he was sneaking off to be with her during our visits. He would leave my brothers and I at the drugstores or at the park, buying our silence with penny candy and ice cream. Jamie's little tryst didn't last long, though. Laszlo, the second youngest, had always been loose-lipped. One day, when we came back from town, our father asked us what we did. Jamie snuck off, Laszlo blurted. He always goes and sneaks off to see that ice cream girl. Ha's face grew very pale. He turned to Jamie and seized him by the shoulders. "Is that true?" he asked in a voice that was much too quiet. "You're seeing a girl?" A tense silence hung over us. Jamie opened his mouth, closed it. Jamie, come join me on the porch, Pa said icily. My father never hit us. I want to make that clear. But when he was truly angry or upset, he had a way of talking that cut you to the bone, that made you feel like absolute dog shit. When I was really little and got in trouble, I would hide and cry for hours afterwards, consumed by guilt. Jamie and Pa went onto the porch. The rest of us dispersed through the house. The heavy mood of the day soured. For a couple weeks afterwards, we beat Lazo especially hard and gave him the worst roles in our game. After that, he mostly kept his mouth shut. Jamie returned with a pale face. He didn't talk to any of us until the morning, where he tried to act like nothing had happened. I caught him alone that day. I tugged in his sleeve and asked him, "What did Pa say to you the other night?" Jamie looked down at me. His face suddenly seemed very old. But it gave me a weak smile and tousled my hair. "Not your business," he said. "Don't worry about it." I wasn't in the habit of displeasing my older brother, so I went along with my life. The next time we went to town, the ice cream girl batted her eyes at Jamie, but he stared straight away from her, and she frowned sadly. She wasn't as nice to us after that. There isn't much else to say of my childhood. It was unique, surely, but we had always lived our lives that way, and I was not the questioning type. Our existence continued rather uneventfully for years. My brothers and I cleaned old houses that would never be occupied and weeded yards that would never be used. The forest grew in faster than we could pluck. Welcome in, Carryu, and thank you so much for the follow. Then came the day when Jamie turned 18. Birthdays were frequent in a family of 7, but turning 18, that was special, according to Pa. On this special day, Pa got us all up early and scrubbed our faces with a spit-wet cloth. He made us put on our best clothes, moth-eaten from disuse. He gave Jamie one of his old suits, and it hung baggy on his thin frame. Then we gathered in the chapel. Inside, the air was still and silent. I remember feeling disappointed at the sight of the perfectly normal interior. I always expected there to be some great, terrible secret that my father was guarding. But it was just an old chapel. We sat in the front pew, all in a row. Pa and Jamie hung back at the door. They exchanged some quiet words and then began to walk. They marched arm in arm, staring stiffly ahead, they stepped in time to some silent rhythm. Slowly, they made their way up the aisle. My father bent behind the pulpit, and the sound of creaking wood broke the terse silence. He had opened a trapdoor. Pa and Jamie, still arm in arm, descended into the door. Downstairs, we couldn't see from our angle. My brothers and I sat uncomfortably in the pew, restless, but still quiet. I felt a strange, swelling sensation, like something enormous was happening that I couldn't comprehend. I channeled this by plucking wildly at the loose threads of my ill-fitting pants. My brothers and I sat nervously for a long while, until Pa emerged again, alone. He shut the trapdoor behind him. "Time to go home, boys," he said. I wanted to ask where Jamie was, but my tongue felt heavy. Instead, I fell into step behind him, and we made a solemn procession back to the rotting mansion where we lived. Jamie was there the next morning, snoring in his bed next to mine. We all scrutinized him for some change, but he was the same Jamie he'd always been. The only answer to our questions we received was a hard sock in the arm when we bothered him too much. A few months later, Pa came into our room in the middle of the night. I had been lying awake, but I pretended to sleep as he quietly roused Jamie and led him out the door. I dozed very lightly, only to be reawoken when I heard them coming back up the stairs. One second, I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. Apologies again for the interruption. After that, Jamie was different. He was withdrawn and angry. He stopped playing with us and was quick to yell. There was an angry tension between him and Pa. Even as young as I was, I knew the change had something to do with its strange place in the chapel. Hello, Tony. Welcome in. I wouldn't have to wait long to find out the secret of our family. After all, I was the second oldest. My birthday came that November. I remember every second of that day. Pa woke me before my brothers. He brought me into the master suite where he spent the nights of his lonely existence. The room might have once been grand, but now the walls were ashy with cigarette smoke, and it smelled like stale living. The bed sheets were rumpled on only one side. It made me sad to think of Pa sleeping alone every night in that huge, moth-eaten bed. Pa dressed me in the same suit that Jamie had worn. It fit me a little better. I was fuller and shorter than he was. I looked in the mirror and felt a flash of pride. I was a proper gentleman for once, like those clean-cut men in the old magazines I sometimes found while cleaning, no longer a dirty-faced little boy. Pa stepped back after fixing my tie, his eyes shining. The harsh line of his mouth wobbled as he rubbed his thumb across my cheekbone. "I'm so proud of you," he said and hugged me. My chest swelled with warmth and pride. We walked through the woods to the little white chapel. It was cool. The woods were alive in red and orange. My brothers gathered in the pews while Pa and I waited outside the doors. He looped his arm through mine and looked at me. "Just follow my lead," he murmured, patting my arm. His words soothed me. The doors of the chapel swung open on their own, and the sound of church bells echoed through the woods. Through the rusty bell in the tower sat still, but I wasn't afraid. Pa walked me down the aisle, towards the empty pulpit. We walked in time to the toll of the bells, something I realized only the two of us could hear. My brothers whispered and fidgeted in the pew. Jamie sat in the far end, staring straight ahead, his eyes dull and back stiff. We ascended. Behind the pulpit lay the secret trapdoor, ancient and mouldered. Pa gave the rusted brass ring a mighty pull, and it opened with a creak. Before us lay a stone staircase, riddled with cracks and dappled with moss and mushrooms. The shallow stairs led into the dark. For the first time that day, I felt something other than anticipation and pride. I was afraid, but I think, looking back, that I would have been unable to leave if I tried. Pa and I walked carefully down the stairs. He still held tight to my arm. We emerged into an earthen tunnel, tall enough for us to walk upright, though roots from the ceiling brushed our heads. For a moment, we stood still. There was a strange sputtering sound, and a breeze blew from the darkness ahead. That should have been impossible, as the tunnel seemed to only go deeper into the ground. But as the breeze came, so did light. Alcoves had been scooped into the earthen walls, and tens of candles suddenly burst to life in their wax-filled recesses. I jumped as the sudden light revealed hundreds of moths. They took off, excited by the flame. Their soft wings flapped and brushed against my cheek. As Pa and I walked down the tunnel, my apprehension grew. I I started shaking. Pa stood resolute by my side, his presence steadying. I don't know how long we walked in silence. The tunnel was not without its own sound. The pop of fat from the candles, the drip of moisture from the ceiling, the tamping of our shoes, and the fluttering of moths' wings. They landed on my shoulders and my head and bounced off of my face often. I wanted to ask Pa where we were going, but yet again I stayed silent. Soon I became aware of faint, sweet smell. Almost at the same time, the candlelight revealed a door. Moths were clustered around it so thickly that it appeared the frame was made of a canvas of pale, shivering wings. Pa turned to me. In the flickering candlelight, the hollows of his face were cast in sharp relief. He looked more like an ape than a man. "This is where I leave you, son," he said. He put his hands on my shoulders. "Don't be afraid. You won't be hurt, I promise. Just do what nature tells you to do." He saw that I was shaking, and he laid his eyes on my face. "This is our family's legacy, Eli. Jamie did this. I did this. My father before me did this. It's as old and ancient as our blood. Older, even. Nothing is going to harm you." "Okay," I choked out. My father smiled wanly, then turned and left me before the door. He disappeared back the way we came, and I was alone. Cautiously, I pushed open the stone door. The moths fluttered away from it, forming a cloud that I had to bat away to see. The chamber that I emerged into was huge. The walls were lined with hundreds of alcoves, candles burning bright, and more candles were spread across the floor. Across from me, there was a great white bed surrounded by gossamer curtains. The sweet smell was overpowering, undercut by something primal and funky, like body odor. Then the bed moved. From its side unfolded pairs of strange appendages. I struggled to comprehend what I was seeing. They were arms, human arms, ending in human hands, but they bent in too many places, and they were too long and pale. Long tendrils like feathers flared from their elbows. It wasn't a bed. It was a person. Perhaps in the loosest sense of a word. Its body was huge, white and bloated. What I had thought were pillows were actually huge, pendulous breasts, bare of nipples. The swell of the bed's comforter was huge stomach, sagging down to the ground in ripples of white flesh. As I watched a pair of arms reach to gently part the gossamer curtains, like a bride lifting the veil, Its face. How to describe its face? Once cleaning trash out of our house, I found an old china doll. It had a puffy, exaggerated expression of innocence, though time had worn the paint from its face and gave it only the barest imitation of humanity. The creature's face looked like that doll, but its eyes were large and bulging and completely black. Most notably of all, from its forehead sprouted a pair of long, feathery antennae. They were as long as its arms, reaching towards the high ceiling. They waved back and forth, gently like ferns. As I took it in, stunned by the wrongness of it all, the creature smiled at me. Its pale, fleshy lips parted, revealing a dripping black mouth with no teeth. And then it spoke. "Hello, sweet Elias," it said. The voice was so wrong. The intonation and words were clearly English, the voice feminine, but it had a weird buzz to it, and a thick quality like someone speaking with their throat blocked. I was somehow able to find my own voice. "What are you?" I asked. "How do you know my name?" A strange buzzing and clicking noise came from the creature. The fat on its body rolled like waves, and the toothless mouth gaped wider. It was laughing. "I am you," it said. "You are the fruit of my loins. I birthed your brothers, and your father, and your father's father, and his father before him. I know every inch of you, your flesh, for it grew and pupated within me. Now the time has come for you to give of yourself, so I may have your son." Okay, now I guess I understand why the title of the story is, or rather why there is an NSFW tag on this story. I am hesitant to continue reading the story, to be honest. I understood almost immediately. I felt a mix of horror and revulsion, but it was far off, suppressed. The sweet smell filled my nostrils. It made my head swim. My skin was hot and itchy in the ill-fitting suit. I should have been terrified. I should have been disgusted. I am, in retrospect. But I was under the spell of the creature, the scent of its pheromones too powerful for my brain to comprehend. In that moment, I knew that my body served a singular purpose, and I knew what that purpose was. I'm going to be honest, this story is taking a turn. It's taking the strangest turn. I'm not gonna lie. Then I was before the creature. Its many arms petted my hair, my body, my face, the soft feathers tickling me. It cooed and spoke to me as I climbed on top of it, my body sinking into its soft and yielding flesh. I lay on its stomach, its bosom as my pillow, lying against its skin. Though it was tacky like dough, I felt a comfort I had never known, nor have ever known since. I was safe. I was swaddled. I was loved. It wrapped its spindly arms around me, its buzzing words of encouragement burrowing into my brain like worms. Hello, Amusa. Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome in. And then I began to move my hips, and I was in heaven. I'll spare you the mechanical details of that coupling. Me recalling having sex with a moth monster who was also apparently my mother and grandmother is just as traumatizing as you reading about it. I'm traumatized indeed. But what I must say is that I've never felt pleasure like that since. I've never once felt so held, so loved, and so safe. I know now that I wasn't in my right mind, and recalling it makes me nauseous. But there are still nights I jolt awake feeling a ghost of that heavenly pleasure. And for a moment I grieve that I'll never feel it again. I don't know how long I was in the chamber with that thing. I vaguely remember dressing myself slowly, still drunk from the pheromones in the air. I remember the creature rubbing its belly as I left, followed by a cloud of moths. I slept dreamlessly for hours and hours. Over dinner, I made eye contact with Pa as I was shoveling spaghetti into my mouth. He beamed at me proudly, and I felt good. But Jamie was looking at me also. He didn't return my smile, his mouth now permanently set in a grim line. As the encounter with the moth creature faded like a dream, Jamie continued to bother me. Hadn't he experienced the same heavenly pleasure I'd had? Sure, there were lingering dregs of fear, even disgust at what I'd done. But if everyone in our family had done it, what was the harm? It was our legacy, after all. More time passed, and my confusion turned to anger. Jamie barely interacted with us anymore. Did he think he was better than us? Did he think that his feelings made him separate from the family somehow? I never got the chance to confront him. He came to me. It was about 5 months after my 18th birthday. Life had continued as normal. But one morning, when we woke up, there was a strange feeling in the air. I made a comment about it to my brothers. They just looked at me blankly. As we went about our chores, I felt strangely happy. We were walking out of one of the old guest houses, and Jamie grabbed me roughly by the arm and pulled me away. He was nearly nose to nose with me, and his eyes were bright and wild. "You Listen good now, Eli, he hissed. Why the hell do you think Pa never let us talk to the girls in town? I looked at him in confusion. That thing in the chapel, he continued. It doesn't want outside competition. It gave birth to all of us, boys. But it can't control the gender of the baby it makes. Why do you think there are no girls in our family? What do you think happens when one is born? The beginnings of dread begin to creep up from my stomach. Yours is coming today, Jamie continued. His mouth turned into a scowl. He let go of the vice grip in my arm. And for your sake, I hope it ain't a girl. His face fell. I wasn't so lucky. Okay, let me just pause and say once again that this story is taking the strangest turns, and I am I'm just left flabbergasted, to be honest. Before I can say anything, he was gone, stalking off after the rest of our brothers. I stood staring after him. As night came, my dread grew. Gone was my pleasant mood from before. Night found me sleepless, and I stared at the ceiling for hours. When the door creaked open, I knew it was Pa. He came to my bedside and motioned for me to join him. We made our way through the dark woods to the chapel. The bad feeling was everywhere, soaked into the very air. The creatures of the night were silent, and it was cold. The chapel stood a white smear in the darkness. We went inside. The floorboards seemed to vibrate, and when Pa opened the door, I heard it. A terrible, buzzing wail full of anger and pain, punctuated by inhuman squeaks and growls. I'd heard the sounds of animals in pain before. This was like some sort of horrible symphony of all those cries. I recoiled at the sound, standing rooted to the spot. I looked at Pa to see if my horror was reflected in his face. It was, to some extent, but over it lay a veneer of hardness. I realized then that whatever was happening was no mystery to him. He had probably experienced it 100 times before. He took my arm and practically dragged me down the tunnel. The moths were flapping around wildly, diving at us and bouncing off the walls. A few of them flew into the candle flames, their feathery wings burning as fast as paper. The screaming got louder. We came to the chamber. The creature was in the same spot, but this time its body was rippling like a wave. Some of its arms were braced in the walls and floor. The sweet smell was gone, replaced by that of blood and viscera. The creature's puffy doll face was twisted in a horrifying mask of pain and rage. Spittle flew from its black mouth as it wailed, the sound bouncing around the chamber. Its antenna swiveled wildly around its head, every feather twitching and shaking. At the sight of us, its pallid face contorted further. "Levi!" It bellowed my father's name. "What have you wrought? The fruit of your loins beget me only curses." I was transfixed by the creature's rippling body, bile rising in the back of my throat. It was pushing something out, I realized. A dark puddle was forming in the floor beneath it. My father moved towards the creature, like he meant to comfort it. A pair of arms sideswiped him with surprising strength, sending him careening into the walls. He tripped over the candles. The creature let out a deep, throaty groan. Its body gave one more powerful ripple, and there was a wet noise as something dropped to the floor of the cave. What lay before me was essentially a cocoon. It was roughly watermelon-sized, white, and it glistened with fluid in the light. The creature's screams died into rattling breaths. As I watched, the cocoon began to tremble. A tiny red fist tore its way through the gauzy membrane. From the hole, I heard a cry, weak and plaintive. It was a baby. Something came over me. I somehow knew that the baby was mine. I'm sure others can tell better stories of parental instincts kicking in. But that's what happened to me at that moment. While my father and the creature struggled to recover, I knelt down and began ripping the cocoon apart, trying to free the baby within. The cocoon had the texture of spider silk, thin and sticky. It dissolved at my touch. Soon the baby was free. Its skin was red and blotchy, and it looked like a lumpy potato, but its face and cry were wholly human. And as I held it in my hands, I could feel the very gears of the world turning. My fate was changing. Wild does not even begin to cover it, Kinholas. Every line as I read just Elias, the creature rasped. I looked up at it. Its expression had relaxed, its black eyes grown wide and shining, reflecting the candlelight. Its antennae had calmed, resuming their slow and gentle waving. It reached its nearest pair of arms out to me. "Bring it to me," it demanded. I lifted the baby in front of me and realized with sudden dread that something on it was missing. The baby was female. The creature's arms strained for the baby, and I instinctually clutched it to my chest. "Why?" I asked. "It is a usurper," the creature spat. "It is a curse. The labor was long. I am hungry. It licked its lips, leaving behind a film of gray spit from a black tongue. Jamie's words came back to me then, and I realized that he was right. Pa had gotten to his feet. He clutched his side, clearly hurt, and his clothes were singed from candle flames. "Just give it to her, son," he wheezed. "It'll be over soon." I looked down at the baby. It was crying and squirming. It grabbed onto my shirt as tightly as it could, its little fist balling in the fabric. For the first time in my life, I made my own decisions. I turned away from my family, and I ran. I held the baby tightly to my chest as I sprinted into the tunnel. My father called after me, but his voice was drowned out by a buzzing wail that grew in volume until it seemed a physical thing, a wave pushing me out. Moths bounced off my face as I ran past the candles. They blew out, filling the tunnel with darkness. I thought I heard my father scream, a sound of terror beneath the creature's anger. I don't like to think about it. I left our property toward town, the baby still bawling loudly. Finally, I had to stop running, my lungs burning and my legs cramping. I've never been as afraid as I was, limping through that dark forest, my daughter's cries a dead giveaway to any who would follow. But nothing did. I walked through the town, knocking on doors until someone answered. My daughter's sobs had tapered from a steady stream to quiet whimpers, and I knew she needed care soon. The ice cream girl answered the door, her hair mussed with sleep. She took in the sight of me, recognizing me immediately, and her eyes widened at the baby in my arms. "Please help us," I croaked. It was the first time I'd spoken to a woman, really spoken. Shirley's family took care of me for a while. They taught me how to take care for my daughter, how to change diapers and prepare formula and burp her. I never left their house for fear of seeing my family. I was there for only a week or two. Then my daughter and I hit the road again. We went from town to town, surviving on the kindness of strangers. It was usually women who had ended up helping us. I met all kinds of women. Women hardened by the world, bitter ones, gentle ones, fiery ones. They taught me about the world, about all the things I'd been missing. When we were far enough north that I felt safe, I began trying to settle down. My daughter was growing into a healthy, fat, little toddler. She was the axis in which my world turned. Everything I did for her. Eventually, I named her Deborah, Debbie for short. I found a decent job with on-site daycare for Debbie. Back then, it was a little easier to provide for a child than it is today, I won't deny. But I still worked myself to the bone. It was the easiest way to chase away the shadows that plagued my mind. I had lovers here and there, both men and women, but nothing lasted. Sex was difficult for me, considering what I had been through. I always felt disgusting afterwards, always unable to ignore the simple fact that it would never feel as good as that. And that knowledge made me feel like a monster. Eventually, I stopped trying to feign interest in sex, and I was happier for it. But it meant that I never got into a real relationship. I didn't need a relationship. I had Debbie. As the years passed and she grew bright and smart and funny, the shadows of my past seemed farther and further away. But I was a fool to let myself be comforted by time. I cannot escape the curse of my blood, no matter how far I run. We're almost done. Yesterday was Debbie's 14th birthday. Today she locked herself in the bathroom in the morning, crying for hours. When she finally let me in, I could barely contain a scream, because there, bursting from my daughter's forehead, was a pair of long, feathery antennae. And that ends our last story for this evening. All I can say is that was a wild ride. And when Canola said that the story doesn't get weirder, well, apparently it did. We started our first story with a woman who, for lack of a better word, consumed her daughter because she was hungry. And now we end our story with another female who also consumed her daughters because she doesn't eat the males, she only eats the females. I kid you not, I was not planning on the stories being so, how to say, weird and wild, but at the same time, for it to circle back to the story at the beginning. Exactly. You're right. Next time, I need to proofread. But then, one of the reasons why I wanted to, read it together with you guys was so that I could discover the story the same time as you guys. But I fear I may have to. I feel like I may have to request my mods for help with this one. That way, you guys can read the story somewhat and tell me if it's something that we can greenlight or not. Let's just say that I was looking through it. I gave it a cursory look, Zerzot. So yes. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask help from my mods. I'm going to link the stories in the Discord for the mods. So that they can look at it somewhat. Alright. Thank you so much for staying as long as you have, Kiddolas. Please do take care when going out. So those are our stories for this evening. It started with a crazy story, and apparently it ended with an even crazier and weirder story. And I don't know if you felt it was something indeed. So, yes. I hope that, well, considering that this story was from the No Sleep subreddit, I guess it served its purpose. So yes. Okay, it is now 11:06, so I will have to end the stream here for now. But before we do that, let's try to see who we can raid out. Let me just check. 1 second, I just need to mute the tab first. I need to make sure that we are muted. Otherwise, we are in big trouble. Okay, so we are going to be raiding out. Wait, where is the raid button? Here we go. You need to make sure that we are. Thank you, Hideki, for the follow. Welcome in. Okay, so I am just going to. I hate to type in the name because there's a reason why one of the mods is gone. So we are going to. Can I type it in? Apparently, I cannot. 1 second. Alright, so 1 second, because it seems that why does it not allow it? Has it not started yet? I don't know, actually. For some reason. Okay, there we go. Wait. Is the... No, it's okay. It's not. It's just Twitch being Twitch. Anyways, I hope you guys had a very slightly weird, disorienting, creepy time listening to our stories for this evening. For tomorrow, I will be... well, not ASMR. I'll be playing some video games for tomorrow. So yes, thank you guys so much for staying with me for as long as you have, for listening to the stories. We are going to be raiding out to another VTuber who is playing Stalker, actually. Stalker 2, for those familiar with the game. So, we'll be reading out, and I will see you guys in my next stream. And as always, keep safe. This has been your vampire Onesimus Sister Midnight, signing off.